Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just gossip. It's a public meltdown caught in real time. Picture this. Tony Rich, the so-called perfect fiancé of Claressa Shields, exploding like a ticking time bomb in the middle of a crowd. And his target? None other than Papoose, the man everyone swears is untouchable, loyal, and drama-proof. Well, not anymore. Because when fists started flying and people screamed, "Stop," the truth wasn't just exposed. It was broadcasted like a live pay-per-view disaster. But here's the real kicker. Was this fight really about Claressa Shields? Or was it about pride, jealousy, and years of tension boiling over? Tony Rich has been smiling for the cameras, playing the supportive partner. But behind closed doors, anonymous insiders say he was crumbling, sick of comparisons, tired of whispers, and desperate to step out of Papoose's shadow. And when that rage finally snapped, ladies and gentlemen, the world saw it. This isn't just a street fight. This is betrayal, humiliation, and scandal wrapped in one explosive showdown. And believe me, if you thought this was just about Claressa, oh no, this was about legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start peeling back the layers of this mess. Because what went down between Tony Rich and Papoose wasn't just a random scuffle, it was years in the making. See, when you put Claressa Shields at the center of any love triangle, you're not just inviting drama. You're basically ordering a full buffet of chaos. And trust me, Tony Rich signed up for way more than he could chew. Now, let's break this down. Tony Rich, businessman, fiancé, self-proclaimed pillar in Claressa's empire, has always walked around with the smug smile of a man who thinks he's got it all. The girl, the spotlight, the respect. Except respect can't be bought with a diamond ring or Instagram couple goals. Respect is earned. And unfortunately for Tony, the comparisons never stopped. Everywhere he went, whispers followed. Yeah, he's engaged to Claressa, but he's no Papoose. That's the wound that never healed. Because Papoose isn't just Remy Ma's husband. He's the hip-hop poster child for loyalty. He stood by Remy through prison, through scandals, through every hurricane life threw at them. His name became synonymous with dedication. And for Tony Rich, that loyalty became a curse. Because no matter how many power couple photos he staged with Claressa, he could never outrun Papoose's shadow. People close to the situation swear Tony tried everything: business deals, networking events, lavish gifts for Claressa. He was on a mission to prove himself. But every time a headline mentioned hip-hop's real ride-or-die couple, it wasn't Claressa and Tony. It was Remy and Papoose. And you know how social media works. Memes don't let you breathe. Screenshots of Papoose being the ultimate gentleman floated all over Twitter, while Tony was reduced to, well, being Claressa's plus one. But let's not pretend Claressa herself is drama-free. Far from it. She's a magnet for headlines, championship titles, beefs inside and outside the ring, rumors of side flings, messy friendships. Claressa thrives on chaos. And Tony? He thought he could handle it. He thought being the rock in her storm would make him a hero. But instead, it made him a footnote. Now imagine sitting front row at every fight, watching the love of your life bask in glory, while the world laughs behind your back because you're not the man with the reputation. Anonymous insiders claim Tony developed a sort of obsession. One source, who, of course, insists on staying unnamed, said Tony once snapped at a party when someone jokingly called him Claressa's intern. His response? "I'm not her intern. I'm her empire." Except nobody bought it. And then came the whispers. Oh, the whispers. Screenshots, blurry DMs, anonymous posts on shady forums, all hinting that Claressa's loyalty wasn't as solid as she made it seem. Guess whose name popped up in those whispers? Papoose. Now, let's be clear. Was there ever proof? Nope. But in gossip land, proof is optional. Suspicion is enough to set a man's ego on fire. And Tony Rich? His ego was a tinderbox waiting for a match. People close to Papoose laughed off the rumors, saying he barely even interacted with Claressa. But that didn't stop the speculation. And when speculation meets insecurity, You get an emotional cocktail strong enough to knock any man out. Tony became paranoid. Friends say he started monitoring Claressa's phone, showing up uninvited to her training sessions, and picking fights over the smallest things. One alleged argument was so loud that neighbors claimed they heard Tony yelling about respect at 2 a.m. So, how do you get from paranoia to fists flying in public? Simple. You mix jealousy, humiliation, and just enough liquid courage. Reports claim that on the day of the fight, Tony had been drinking. Witnesses describe him as red-faced, slurring, but determined. He spotted Papoose at a venue Claressa was supposed to appear at, and boom, the ticking time bomb finally exploded. Now, here's the kicker. The cameras were already rolling. Because of course they were. In this world, everything is content. Witnesses pulled out their phones faster than security could react. The moment Tony lunged, Papoose barely had time to register before chaos erupted. People screaming, chairs falling, drinks spilling. It was pandemonium. And what did the crowd chant? Stop. Over and over. But let's be honest, nobody really wanted it to stop. They wanted angles. They wanted footage. They wanted to go viral. And Tony delivered. One video already making rounds on TikTok shows him yelling, "You think you're the only loyal man in hip-hop?" right before throwing a wild swing. Spoiler, the swing missed. But the humiliation didn't. Because here's where it gets darker. That fight wasn't about landing punches. It was about years of bottled-up rage spilling into the open. Tony wasn't just fighting Papoose. He was fighting every meme, every comparison, every smirk from people who thought he wasn't enough. And when the world saw it, the narrative flipped. He wasn't the powerful fiancé anymore. He was the desperate man crumbling under pressure. Witnesses claimed Claressa herself was frozen. She didn't jump in, didn't stop it. Some even say she smirked. Imagine that, your fiancé risking his reputation in a public meltdown, and you stand there like it's just another headline to ride. That's Claressa for you. Always calculating, always watching how she can flip disaster into spotlight. So, ladies and gentlemen, fists were flying, drinks were spilling, and security was scrambling. But the real explosion? That didn't happen on the street, it happened online. Because in 2025, scandals don't just live in the moment. They get packaged, edited, and viralized before the blood even dries. Within minutes, hashtags started trending. Hashtag Tony versus Papoose, hashtag Claressa caught in the middle, and my personal favorite, hashtag somebody stop Tony. TikTok was flooded with shaky vertical clips, each one capturing a different angle of Tony Rich's meltdown. One clip got millions of views in under an hour, showing Papoose ducking Tony's sloppy swing like he was dodging a bad mixtape. The caption? Papoose moves faster than Tony's career. Brutal. But memes were only the beginning. Then came the so-called leaks. Anonymous Twitter accounts started dropping screenshots of alleged text messages. One thread claimed to show Tony ranting to a friend weeks earlier, "I'm not living in another man's shadow. If I see him, it's on sight." Another leak alleged that Claressa herself texted a girlfriend, "Tony's spiraling. If he snaps in public, I won't stop him. Let the world see who he really is." Were these texts real? Who cares? They were juicy, and that's all the internet needed. Even blogs got involved. A shady site called Hip Hop Whistle published what they called an exclusive eyewitness account from someone inside the venue. Tony walked in already heated. He was mumbling about respect, loyalty, and Claressa's name being dragged. When he saw Papoose, he lost it. He shouted, "You've been mocking me for years," and then tried to swing. Claressa didn't flinch. She looked like she was enjoying the show. And if that wasn't enough fuel, Instagram gossip pages started reposting old photos of Claressa and Papoose from charity events, fight nights, and industry mixers. Suddenly, harmless pictures looked like coded love stories. A blurry hug became a scandal. A side smile became a secret affair. The internet doesn't need evidence, it just needs vibes. Meanwhile, Papoose's camp tried damage control. One anonymous family friend told reporters, "Papoose doesn't even think about Tony. This man created a narrative in his head." Papoose was blindsided, but he stayed calm because that's who he is. Calm, Sure, but videos showed him clenching his fists, jaw tight, eyes locked on Tony. Calm men don't look like they're 2 seconds away from ending someone's night. The reactions were savage. One viral tweet read, "Imagine losing a fight and your dignity in front of Papoose. Tony Rich gotta move cities now." Another wrote, "Claressa should get a medal for keeping a straight face during that circus." And the comments on Instagram? Let's just say Tony's mentions were a graveyard. People spammed his last post with clown emojis, broken heart gifs, and the word in turn. That old nickname came back to haunt him. But here's where it gets darker. Fake investigative reports started circulating. A blog claimed Tony Rich had been siphoning Claressa's money to fund his businesses. The headline screamed, "Tony Rich exposed, using Shield's fortune to hide his own failures." Another so-called expose alleged that Tony had hired private investigators to follow Claressa, hoping to catch her with Papoose. According to the piece, the PI came back empty-handed every time, which only made Tony more paranoid. And then came the wildest claim of all, that Tony wasn't just jealous, he was desperate. One anonymous source swore he'd overheard Tony at a club weeks earlier saying, "If I can't control the narrative, I'll create one." Think about that. Did Tony orchestrate this fight? Did he want the cameras, the chaos, the headlines? Was this his twisted way of stepping out of Papoose's shadow by becoming the man who swung at him in public? If true, that's not just desperation. That's career suicide dressed up as bravado. But the internet ate it up. YouTube commentators made hour-long breakdowns, freeze-framing Tony's red face, Papoose's calm stance, and Claressa's chilling stillness. Reaction videos popped up everywhere. One influencer yelled into the camera, "You don't swing at Papoose. You just don't. That's like challenging loyalty itself. Tony, my brother, you signed your own cancellation notice." Even celebrities chimed in. Rapper Mayo tweeted, "Seen the clip? Embarrassing." Cardi B liked a post dragging Tony, which was basically her co-signing the internet's judgment. And Remy Ma? She posted a single word on Instagram stories. Unbothered. That silence spoke louder than a diss track. Claressa, of course, stayed silent at first, which only made things worse. Her silence was interpreted as shade, as complicity, as strategy. One gossip page wrote, "Claressa isn't speaking because she knows this scandal makes her bigger. Tony's humiliation is her content." And you know what? They weren't wrong. Every headline mentioned her name. Every meme put her in the center. The fight was Tony versus Papoose. But the spotlight? It was all Claressa's. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the dangerous part. Because scandals don't just ruin reputations, they also create new power plays. While Tony was being roasted alive online, Claressa's brand engagement skyrocketed. Her name trended worldwide. Sponsors were suddenly circling. Journalists were begging for interviews. And her PR team? Probably popping champagne behind closed doors. Ladies and gentlemen, scandals don't end when fists stop flying. They mutate, they grow, and they follow you into boardrooms, courtrooms, and every single headline that refuses to die. And for Tony Rich, this wasn't just a fight. It was the beginning of a full-blown legal disaster. Within days, police confirmed what everyone already suspected. The altercation between Tony and Papoose was officially under investigation. Assault in public on camera, with dozens of witnesses chanting "stop," like it was a movie premiere. That's not something you sweep under the rug. Authorities confirmed they were reviewing multiple angles of the incident. And let's just say, none of those clips made Tony look like the victim. Leaked reports suggested Tony could face charges ranging from disorderly conduct to attempted assault. One anonymous officer even told a gossip outlet, "If Tony thinks money will save him, he's mistaken." The evidence is right there, plastered all over social media. Imagine that. Your downfall not just witnessed by strangers, but rewatched, clipped, and memed into eternity. And while the law circled Tony, Papoose played his role like a seasoned pro. He released a calm statement through his lawyer. Mr. Mackey, aka Papoose, was simply defending himself from an unprovoked attack. He remains focused on his family and his career. Translation? He wasn't sweating. He didn't need to scream or clap back. His silence, his composure, it all made Tony look smaller, weaker, and more pathetic in comparison. But the legal trouble didn't stop with Tony. Oh no. Rumors swirled that Clarissa's sponsors were demanding answers. One leaked email claimed a major sportswear brand was reevaluating its partnership, citing negative press associated with Shield's inner circle. Another supposed leak said Claressa herself might be called to testify if Tony's case went to court. The irony? Claressa was benefiting from the attention, but she was also being dragged into the mud alongside her fiancé. And the internet turned into a courtroom of its own. People debated endlessly. Was Tony a victim of constant humiliation, or just a jealous hothead? Was Claressa innocent, or had she stoked the fire by staying silent and smirking during the fight? One viral thread read, "Claressa is playing chess, Tony's playing checkers, and Papoose. He's already won the game." Brutal, but accurate. Meanwhile, financial cracks started showing. Blogs alleged Tony's businesses were tanking as investors pulled out, terrified of the bad publicity. Screenshots circulated of emails supposedly sent to Tony's staff. Effective immediately, all projects are on hold until further notice. His empire? More like a house of cards collapsing in real time. But the juiciest twist came when an insider claimed Remy Ma herself was considering suing Tony for defamation.
Why?
Because the fight wasn't just about fists, it was about loyalty. Tony had allegedly shouted accusations about Papoose and Claressa having a secret connection. If those accusations made it to the press, Remy's camp wasn't about to let them slide. Imagine the courtroom drama. Tony on trial for assault while also being slapped with a defamation suit by hip-hop royalty. That's not just a scandal. That's a full-on circus. And yet, through all of this, Claressa remained silent. Weeks went by. No statements, no apologies, no explanations. Just a string of Instagram posts showing her training, her laughing with friends, her looking unbothered while the world burned around her. And people ate it up. Comments flooded in. Queen energy. She let the men fight while she stayed booked and busy. But others weren't so forgiving. You let your fiancé humiliate himself and didn't lift a finger. The divide grew sharper every day. But ladies and gentlemen, here's where it gets even uglier. A leaked court document surfaced online suggesting Tony had filed paperwork claiming emotional distress caused by the constant comparisons to Papoose. Yes, you heard that right. He actually tried to blame the internet's obsession with Papoose for his public breakdown. If true, that's not just desperate, it's laughable. You can't sue people for reminding you that you're not Papoose. That's like suing the sun for rising every morning. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, an anonymous source dropped the final bombshell. Tony and Claressa's engagement was allegedly on ice. The source claimed Claressa told friends, "I can't marry a man who embarrasses me in public." This isn't strength, it's weakness. Now, was this real? Who knows? But once the rumor started, it spread like wildfire. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Tony wasn't just a man under investigation. He was also a man abandoned. Fans speculated endlessly. Was Claressa really leaving him? Was this her chance to pivot into a new, strong, independent woman narrative while Tony sank? The possibilities were endless, and every theory made headlines. So, where does that leave us? Tony rich, humiliated, broke, under investigation, possibly dumped. Papoose, calm, collected, more respected than ever. And Claressa Shields, trending, profitable, untouchable, or so it seems. But here's the real question, ladies and gentlemen. Is this the end of the story, or just the beginning of something darker? Because if history has taught us anything, scandals don't die, they evolve. Today, it's assault charges. Tomorrow, it could be leaked audio, secret settlements, or shocking betrayals we haven't even imagined yet. And that right there is the cliffhanger. Because the fight may have ended in public, but behind closed doors, the war is only just beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, what we just witnessed isn't just a fight. It's a blueprint for how fast reputations can collapse. Tony Rich walked into that venue thinking he'd prove himself once and for all. Instead, He handed his haters a lifetime supply of memes. And the worst part? The cameras didn't just catch a swing, they caught the unraveling of a man's entire image. But the question we all have to ask is this: was it worth it? Did Tony really think lunging at Papoose would erase years of insecurity? Or did he secretly know that one meltdown was his only chance to finally step out of the shadows? Because right now, the only thing he stepped into is legal quicksand. Claressa Shields, on the other hand, has played this scandal like a grandmaster. No words, no apologies, just calculated silence. Is that strength, or is it cold-blooded strategy? Is she protecting her empire, or is she quietly planning her exit from Tony's chaos? And Papoose? Well, he didn't even need to fight. His loyalty, his composure, his calm silence said it all. Sometimes the best revenge isn't throwing a punch, it's letting the other man destroy himself. So, I'll leave you with this. Do you think Claressa will dump Tony to save her brand? Will Tony face jail time, lawsuits, or worse, total irrelevance? And most importantly, did Tony just make Papoose even more legendary by trying and failing to bring him down? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story isn't over. Hit that like button if you think Tony just dug his own grave, and subscribe to Gossip Spill Vibe so you don't miss the next bombshell. Trust me, the next twist is already loading.